Have you ever been part of an organization that makes you feel unsafe at work? Meaning maybe your coworkers don't have your back, or everyone is just trying to one-up you. Maybe when it's time to throw somebody under the bus, you know you're that person. Maybe your boss gets you to do things you know his boss won't approve of. How about when your boss is ragging on you about the numbers and quotas for the month, and you better get there or else? Unfortunately, that's how a lot of businesses are ran today. We don't praise the guy who accomplishes everything. Instead, we are jealous. Maybe your boss is even threatened. Or sometimes we make fun of those people for being an overachiever. Whenever they fail, we feel good inside, hoping they make another mistake. In Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek says that leadership is all about taking care of people. Leaders are not responsible for the numbers. Leadership is about the people and for the people, who in turn will take care of the numbers. So let's get started. As leaders, our sole responsibility is to protect our people, and in return, the people will protect each other and advance the company as a whole. Simon Sinek here introduces the concept of the circle of safety. The world around us is filled with danger and forces trying to hinder us. Back in the day when we were cavemen, it was the saber-toothed tigers and lions. Today it's competitors, meeting deadlines, and personal life issues. In some organizations, there are also threats from the inside, towards the individuals, such as layoffs and bad cultures. When organizations present threats from the inside, the focus of the people switches to self-preservation. And when that happens, people can't build a team, but will instead defend themselves. So let's say the work environment is sales-based, and there's possible layoffs in the future. Well, chances are, Anthony and Sally, who are coworkers, aren't going to get along, even if they're in the same position and should be a team. They might pretend to be happy when the other makes a sale, but deep down, they are jealous and hoping for the other to fail. We get into survival mode, where it's everybody for themselves, because we know, if layoffs happen, we don't want it to be us. It's the duty of leadership then, to set an internal culture that is free of threats and rich in camaraderie. Something to show that we are actually a team, and both sales will make the company look good. So now let's take a look at the two different circles. The wrong circle of safety, circle of threats, outside factors. That might include shaming, rejection, layoffs, intimidation, punishment for mistakes, and politics within the company. The good circle of safety. This has safety, protection, mistakes seen as learning, honest, support, caring, appreciation, and welcoming. And when effective leadership can fill the culture with a sense of belonging and care for the group, that's when the people can effectively tackle on the external threats. And I know you're thinking, yeah, that's kind of a fairy tale world. Let's now talk about reality. Simon says, oh, sorry, that was kind of funny. Simon says, the reality of life for many managers and employees are stuck in bad companies and bad cultures. He says there are very few leaders who strive to make the work environment safe. Some of us like and nod at the theoretical principles, but then we tell ourselves the reality is pretty different. We gotta make sales, show some numbers, and of course, we got mouths to feed. So people stay put even when they don't like their jobs. And that's a pity, because having a job we hate is often worse for our health than not having a job at all. And still, even when we know that, we stay in jobs we hate, convincing ourselves that the dangers of staying are smaller than the dangers of leaving, which, the author says, is not true. So each of us is an individual and a part of social groups. We make daily decisions that require us to weigh our self-interest against group interests. This dilemma also happens in our bodies via 4 key chemicals. EDSO, endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. Endorphins and dopamine drive us to satisfy our personal needs. For example, to find food and shelter, or develop solutions and persevere through problems. They help us to get things done so we can survive. Serotonin and oxytocin encourage us to work together with others. They build feelings of trust, camaraderie, and loyalty. They strengthen our social bonds and increase our inclination to cooperate with others to achieve what we can't on our own. And then there's the big C. Sinek says that the release of social chemicals is not automatic, but can be inhibited through cortisol if we feel under threat. So when our inner circle and tribe is ripe with threats, we release cortisol, which stops oxytocin. When that happens, we have no feelings of empathy towards our colleagues and friends, and have no drive to help one another. When we are immersed in an environment in which we cannot feel safe, we naturally become more selfish. We start using our time and energy to preserve ourselves through politicking, backstabbing, and gossiping. So why do we have leaders? And why do we need them? As much as it's popular to say that we are all equal, the truth is, we are not, and we will never be. Sinek says we need a social hierarchy to avoid the constant battles for food that would leave us all divided and enemies. With a hierarchy, instead we voluntarily step back and allow the higher status individuals to serve themselves first. However, the higher status comes at a price, and it's a price that our current society often forgets. The price for a high status is to defend the group. The alpha males of the tribe, the strongest of the group, should indeed be the first to rush towards danger and protect the rest of the group. And that's why we give them first choice of mate. If they die early from the threats, we want to keep their genes in the group. The group is not stupid or irrational. We don't give them all the perks for nothing. That wouldn't be fair. When it comes to leaders, we trust people, not rules. We don't really care about the rules as long as the people in charge are doing the right thing for us. In strong organizations, people break the rules for the organization's benefit. In weak organizations, people break the rules for their own personal gain. So now let's talk about why abstraction kills. Simon's take on Milgram's experiment. If you aren't familiar with it, basically it was an experiment done where they told random people that they were studying the effects of punishment on learnings. Do people learn best by being punished after making a mistake? So they had two options, which were randomly chosen by paper, where they could be the teacher or the learner. But what they didn't know is that one was a Confederate, so working with the experimenter, and were secretly in on the point of study. It was also rigged so that the random person would always get the teacher. They were going to ask questions, and if they got it wrong, they would be giving a shock. The experimenter told them that would be painful, but not dangerous. So the teachers were in a different room away from the learner, and had a box of switches labeled from slight shock to moderate, very shock, and intense shock, and all the way to danger XXX. They would get the first few right, and then come 4, 5, 6, they would start to get shocked, and the more progressive it was. The other person started to bang on the walls and saying, "It hurts, ouch, my heart is bothering me, let me out," until it was silent. If the teacher ever wanted to stop or check on the person, they would say things like, "Please continue. The experiment requires you to continue." They gave the last knob the same level 3 times. Results were disturbing. 65% shocked all the way. Even if the other person had protested, sweating, and didn't want to, they still did. Very dark story, right? And it's pretty disturbing. He first notices that people were more likely to inflict the most severe electric shock when they were not able to see the victim. And then he says that the same experiment is taking place right now in offices around the world. When people could not see the victims weren't real, but became abstractions. Similarly, the more abstract and physically distant the people become from any headquarters or high-up office, the more we become capable of harming them with our decisions. Sinek draws a parallel between the Nazis' famous defense of, "I was following orders," to the modern, "We have to provide shareholder value," of the corporate world. Sinek says that we are visual animals. If we see a person needing help, we help. If there's a clear vision of a brighter future, we build it. And if we have to work to increase the number from X to Y, we'll do that too. The problem is the pain and harm behind those numbers, and which we cannot see. Managing the abstraction. Simon proposes a few rules to tackle the dangers of abstraction. Number 1, keep it real. Bring people together. The internet can't give us deep and trusting relationships. Trust is formed in person. Number 2, keep it manageable. 150 max. Keep your groups at no more than 150 people to reap the benefit of group cohesion and sense of tribal belonging. Number 3, meet people you help. Getting a visual and real-world experience of the impact of your work will reward you and motivate you to do even more. Number 4, give time, not money. We value time and effort we receive more than money. Number 5, be patient. 7 days and 7 years. It takes time to develop a bond of love and trust. Sinek doesn't know how long it takes, but it's more than 7 days and less than 7 years. So now let's talk about how to really turn yourself into a leader. Leadership Lesson 1. Culture equals company. Sinek uses a beautiful quote to introduce his concept. You can easily judge the character of a man by how he treats those who can't do anything for him. What it means is that a strong company culture will treat everyone well, and not just those who are paying them or earning money at the moment. Leadership Lesson number 2. Leader equals culture. Sinek says that leaders set the tone of behavior in an organization. Strong leaders delegate responsibilities and empower their subordinates. They foster an environment where social chemicals and their relative behaviors are abundant and people look after each other. Leadership Lesson 3: Integrity Matters. He says that when we cannot trust the people who are supposed to lead us and serve us, then the whole fabric of our groups come apart. Leadership is about integrity, the adherence to a code of morals, telling the truth, incorruptibility. And when our words and deeds are aligned, the worst betrayal of integrity is when people tell us what we want to hear and change their stance to suit their interests, sort of like politicians. Honesty is telling the truth, that's simple, and accountability. Leadership Lesson 4: Friends Matter. The US Congress worked better in the past because Democrats and Republicans mingled with each other and spoke to each other once business was settled. The author says it's very healthy indeed to meet and spend time together, out of the business context, as we are more inclined to see people as human beings and develop deeper friendships. When we never meet and speak to our opponents, we also tend to demonize our opponents. Leadership Lesson 5: Lead people, not numbers. Here Simon debunks the myth of Jack Welch, the famed CEO of General Electric. He was a typical leader who served the shareholders and went after the short-term gains. Sinek says he didn't leave behind as great a company as people think. He compares him to Costco's CEO, who pays his employees above minimum legal wage and is interested in people and long-term growth. Nobody knows him, but he's built a far more solid company. His return on share also has been far larger. Sinek says that teams led by directive leaders initially outperform those led by empowering leaders. But in the long run, empowering leaders do better. So some key things to take away today: take care of people first. If only one thing you learned from this video, I want it to be this. Apply this in all your relationships and you'll be a happy person. The biggest difference between a manager and a leader is managers look after numbers and results, leaders look after us. Let us all be the leaders we wish we had. And that's all for today. I hope this helped. If you got value from this video, like it. If you have any interesting comments, comment it down below. And if you want more videos like this, subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you did feel like supporting this channel, there is a link down below to buy me a coffee, which I would love because that's the fuel that I use for these late nights till 4 a.m. working on content for you. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Let's continue to move in silence.